right. Good afternoon, everybody. We are glad that you have made it here today to our HR performance evaluation training. Do a quick mic check. Can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up, wave, something. I know you can hear me. Thank you. So I just wanted to thank you for your time today. We're excited to talk a little bit about performance evaluation training this year, what that looks like, a little bit different this year. I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Abel Johnson. I work here on the growth team in human resources. I've been here about 3 years now, a little over 3 years. I'm excited to help present and facilitate this training today. I also have a couple of great colleagues with me here on the growth team as well. I have Kyle Galloway, Tiffany Trader, Denise Stringer, and I also, it looks like I also have Kip and possibly Tiffany as well coming. So you kind of get the whole growth team here today, and they'll help answer some of your questions you may have today and help monitor the chat box for us as we move forward a little bit. Before we get into the deck a little bit, the slide deck, I wanted to do a couple of housekeeping items. Just a thought, we do have, this is series 1 of 2 trainings. We have another training that is on our website. We have a link to, we can send that link out here in the chat box here soon. It is for how to fill out the evaluation form. So we're not going to be covered the logistics of that in this training, but if you have questions regarding how do I fill out the HR form, when do I submit that, when's it due by, how do I score, all those types of questions, we have created an e-learning module that is on our website. You can take it at your own pace. You can watch it as many times as you want. And then if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to the growth team here. We can help do that for you. A couple other things. This session is going to be recorded. We're recording that for a couple of reasons. One, just so we can send this out on our website, and also so we can send an email recap to those that couldn't make it this year or this year to this session, your colleagues or other people who are having a conflict in their schedule. So we'll send that recap out of what we talked about today so that they can also watch it at their own leisure and at their own time. Couple other things, just while we're talking and if you don't have a question or anything, keep yourself mute so that we don't get a lot of back noise, and that will help us so we can all hear. Other than that, Kyle, did I miss anything? Did you want to quickly introduce yourselves? Kyle will be helping co-facilitate with me today.
Yeah, no, excited to join you all this afternoon. Welcome. I've been with BSU for now, I believe this is my 2nd month, so I'm looking forward to helping during this evaluation season. So again, thank you for your time this afternoon, and we hope you guys find it meaningful.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. We're really excited to have Kyle here. He brings some fresh perspectives and good blood with us, so we're excited to help him and put him to work here with us. So a couple of things, as evaluations come to mind this year, I'm sure it's on your mind as we're approaching the holiday seasons, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, we got to do evaluations this year. A couple of things that may come to mind, but before we jump into that, performance evaluations and annual performance evaluations, typically they involve looking back on your employees' accomplishments, talking about the goals that they have maybe met or didn't quite meet, and also talking about the improvements, things that they need to work on in the upcoming year. It's also a time just to give some recognition and just to have a chat with your employee. So we're really hoping that aside from the mandatory piece that we're really focusing on, this is a great time to just chat with your employees, catch up a little bit, and also see how they're doing as an individual. So we're really excited to introduce that. For many of us, this year has been, in one word, different, I guess is a nice way to put it. For some, it's been difficult, a struggle. But when you think about the evaluations this year, as a part of that difficulty in that COVID working from home aspect, flexibility is the key here, right? And as you can tell from our presentation title slide deck, our focus is really going to be on empathy and what that really means to an employee and how to give that in regards to evaluations this year. So we're really going to touch on that and get into some examples of how to apply that. But your primary goal as managers and supervisors is to really help your employees, right? To make sure that they're performing their job, yes, but also just to help them develop as an individual and as a professional. And that takes a lot of time. And we understand that that's a time commitment from you. And we really, truly appreciate the time that you do put into that, especially this time of year with a lot going on your plate. So aside from all that, we'll jump right into the slide deck. I'll let Kyle kind of introduce our topics and what we're going to hammer out today, and we'll get started.
Absolutely. Thanks, Abel. So today's topics, we're going to focus on understanding 2020 and the challenges this year has brought us. Like Abel said earlier, if it hasn't been challenging, it certainly has been different. So we're going to understand, why it was different and, why it was challenging for some as well. And really why showing empathy is more important now than ever, and how it also aligns with our HR people strategy. And we have some good tips to help you out with really how to have a conversation regarding the evaluations that focus on the empathy piece, while also keeping it, performance management related. We're not giving anybody a pass this year because it's COVID, but we're just showing you how to have those conversations that gear towards performance management as well. So we're going to discuss that. Some things to be mindful of. We have some great tips and bits that sometimes people don't think about because it's only maybe something HR typically does and handles. So we'll give you guys an update regarding that. And we also have some, exciting news coming out of HR, hopefully within the next evaluation cycle, next year sessions, how we are trying to change its look. And we're going to have Abel probably discuss on that a little bit later on how he envisions evaluations changing moving forward. So we're excited about that. And then, of course, we'll give you guys some time at the end of today's discussion to leave or ask questions. We had a pre-submitted questionnaire that went out, so we'll make sure to monitor that to make sure there isn't any last-minute questions. But we look forward to having a nice discussion with you all this afternoon. And to kick things off, we would like to ask you all a question.
Yeah, so thanks, Kyle. So while we stretch our toes and stretch our arms, and we're sitting here in this training to get started, to get those juices flowing, we wanted to ask and prompt your feedback here in this question. And that is, in one word, how would you describe managing your team amidst our COVID-19 work from home setting? In one word, what would you describe that? And please feel free to either unmic and share that if you would like, or just put it in the chat box and we'll monitor those chat boxes as they come in. And I'll give you just a few seconds to do that. Hard. Yes, Eric, for sure. That's an understatement, I think, sometimes, right? Opportunity. I like that. Great word, actually. Any other thoughts? You'll notice that on the slide deck here, there's a bunch of cool other words that describe maybe how some of you may or may not be feeling. Flexibility. Yeah. One of the reasons why, and keep them coming, please, patience. Yeah, for sure. One of the reasons why we bring this up is, although our world is changing and has changed, managing in a remote setting is new for a lot of us, right? Maybe we didn't sign up for this, right? None of us knew that this was going to be something that would happen when we came to Boise State, and it's going to be different, right? But as I think Eric and some others have put, it's also an opportunity, right? Some good things have actually come from this. And some other sessions we've asked where people have said that they've actually gotten closer with their colleagues, right? Because it's forced them to connect and kind of build that trust and relationship even more. For some, it's also difficult because just the circumstances of where you're living and the space and the noise, it's all challenging and it's an opportunity. So I appreciate all the work that you are doing as supervisors and managers and managing your team successfully amidst the COVID-19 work from home situation. So I think that's important to point out. Let's go ahead and jump into understanding 2020, what has brought us here, and then let's talk a little bit about empathy and what that means and applying that in our evaluation this year. So for that, let's kick it over to Kyle.
Absolutely. There's no question that 2020 has been an unprecedented year for us all. As a university, we've had drastic changes with quickly transitioning some jobs and or services to a virtual setting. We've adapted to the work environment to provide social distancing for roles that can't be performed virtually, right? We've supported employees through unexpected challenges that they are facing, such as virtual school for their kids or COVID-19 related concerns or diagnosis and many more things. This data is not new, but over 50 million people worldwide have been affected with COVID-19. So when you think about, what's been challenging for you as a manager or supervisor, those same challenges or concerns are also being faced by your employees or staff members. Our lives have changed along with our work. Social gatherings have been limited, and I'll explain a little bit later on, how this can affect somebody's, performance. So here are a couple of things to kind of think about prior to the year evaluation with your employees. Does your employee know what's expected of them? Have you set those expectations with your employee, post-COVID? With a lot of us working in some kind of remote or modified schedule, it can be difficult to have metrics on an employee or staff member if the expectations weren't clear post-COVID-19. And we'll explain a little bit later on how that's important as well. But some of your employees or staff members have never left as they may be essential to the business. And, is it possible that they face similar challenges as those that are working in a remote setting? We think so. Maybe walking traffic in the department has decreased, or maybe those tasks or duties that they normally do when it's busy has been affected with the change. So, how have they adjusted? So because this year has been so different, we believe empathy should play at least a piece of the pie and when it comes to evaluations. And, the meat of our discussion today is going to be in this next slide and how to really apply it. But because everything's been so different for us all, empathy, I think, should be the theme moving forward as you rate your employees. So I'm going to take it back over to Abel to explain why that's important.
Yeah, so as we talk about empathy, a lot of words and thoughts make your mind, and feel free to put them in the chat box too, and as we discuss this, because we'd love your feedback and input. To start off, let's talk about what is empathy and why it matters, specifically in the evaluation process this year. And so, we can define empathy by the Webster Dictionary, which is empathy is understanding another person's feelings. That's great, but I prefer to go with Simon Sinek's definition, and I can share this training TED Talk with you if you'd like. He defines that as empathy is being concerned about the human being and not just their output. So why is that important, right? So as supervisors and as leaders, leadership is about empathy, and it's about having the ability to relate to and connect with people for the purpose of inspiring and empowering their lives. And so when we look at someone's performance, and as we go to that sheet and we have to rate them, some of the things that we should keep in mind is the empathy piece and how their work has been affected and modified as a result of something that's out of their control, right? COVID-19, working from home, all these things have changed. But what we're saying is we do want to care about their output as an employee, but we also want to care about the human being, which is sometimes even more important. And so empathy really is and should be the focus and the lens by which we view our evaluations this year for 2020. And what's great is supervisors and employees and leaders in a lot of your areas, you are in a great position to understand the needs and fears and struggles and wants of your employees. And, as we've said, this year's been rough for many. So your tone and approach should be one of compassion and kindness, using language that truly shows that you understand their concerns and maybe understand why their projects weren't done on time, or maybe it may be delayed, or maybe they didn't get them finished. So empathy doesn't necessarily mean, and I want to make sure that I'm stressing this, we're not saying that empathy is giving a hall pass to somebody for the year 2020. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is it should be something that you keep in mind or be mindful of the struggles that were faced by your employees and also yourselves because of COVID-19. So really considering what effective performance really means in light of the events that have occurred this year. And has expectations been modified, or should expectations be set? New expectations, probably. So these are things to consider and think about as you talk and have those discussions with your employees, and as you go to sit down with them and go over that form and submit, those scores. So I guess the question is, how do we do that, right? How do we have empathy? It sounds great in all HR, sounds great, but how do I apply what you're saying into the conversation and still have the conversation and still submit that form? So I guess my question back to you would be, how often do you check in with your employees, right? How often do you have those conversations, engage how they're doing. Again, not just asking about their output, but how they are as a human being, going back to what Simon said. And so do you understand the struggles that your employee faces this year? And does your employees have the support and tools to do their job? And so these are all great questions. So now that we kind of talked about that lens perspective, how do we apply it? How do we give you some good examples of what we mean? And so for that, we're going to go ahead and show you some tips and tricks of the trade, but also sprinkle in and bake into that the empathy piece and what that would ideally look like.
So the video, how to conduct a better performance review conversation, is a great video about, how to have the right conversation, with your team. So we're going to play this clip here. It's about 3 minutes long, and we'll recap here in just a few short minutes.
Conducting the performance review conversation can be challenging, both for you as a leader as well as for the employee. The employee may be concerned that they're going to be sitting in the hot seat and get judged. They might also worry about how the performance appraisal could affect the potential for them to get a raise. You might be concerned that your feedback can cause them to get emotional or defensive or even argumentative. That's why it's really helpful to have a plan in place when going into this conversation. So I'm going to share with you 7 tips to confidently have the performance review conversation. Tip number 1, don't ad lib. Use the forms that have been provided by your company for the performance review conversation. Number 2, make sure your employee gets to prepare the exact same forms so that you can be on the same page and there's no surprises for them. You don't want them to be frustrated when suddenly they feel like they're being judged for something that they just weren't expecting. Number 3, don't just dive in and get to business. Build some rapport. Set the tone by asking them how their week went. Thank them for showing up to the meeting and maybe discuss something like how their family is doing or any vacation plans they might have. Number 4, before you give your feedback, first allow them in each category to tell you how they felt their performance was in the past year. Tell them where you agreed with their performance opinions, and then tell them where you may have differed. This is an important phrase. Instead of saying disagree or allowing room for any kind of argument, just say, I appreciate your feedback on that. I would agree you did a great job with X, Y, and Z. Where my opinion differs a bit is, and then give the example. Number 6, when giving feedback, make sure you'll use only observable facts, not assumptive judgments. You don't want to say something like, Mike, it really seems like you've checked out and you don't even care anymore this past quarter. Instead, say something like, I've noticed you've been tardy 3 times out of the last 4 weeks. And in most of the meetings in the last 2 weeks, you've really only participated once. What can you tell me about this? This gives them an opportunity to share their side and really explain what might be going on with them. Which leads us to number 7. They may become defensive or argumentative. If so, as challenging as it may be, allow them the time to vent and listen to what they have to say. No need to prescribe an answer, just listen, and if necessary, ask them to share a little bit more. Want an even deeper dive on how to conduct a performance review conversation? Head over to livingasaleader.com/shop and check out our performance management e-learning bundle. In this 2-part course, we not only talk about the conversation, but we also discuss how to set goals with your employee and how to coach them throughout the year. For even more tips like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel or go to livingasaleader.com and subscribe to our blog. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, the video does a great job at explaining the importance of the tone while you're having those conversations, right? So, in HR, we really do stress, how important it is to have your plan in place before your conversations. Again, just to kind of piggyback off of the video, let's kind of prepare to the meeting with a plan. This will allow you to focus in on kind of relaxing and to get into the conversation mode. So if you come prepared, then you'll be able to really, I think, have that conversation run a lot smoother. Building rapport, allowing employees to speak and giving you a perspective on how well they think they did. I think that's only fair, right? And most importantly, in HR, as we are using performance management as a tool for our employees, it's really using the facts. So making sure that we're coming to the meeting prepared with facts. And as you said at the end, allow employees to vent if they have a concern or an issue, and we don't need an answer them all the time, but we could just really just sit back and just take a listen and kind of understand where they're coming from. So those are some things to remember. Some other examples or suggestions you can use prior to the conversation with your employees. We like these phrases because they show empathy. Thank you for your contributions during this difficult time. I appreciate how well you've adjusted. Maybe they've been working from home. So we appreciate how well you've adjusted working from home. We know this year's been difficult. So let's focus on some things that went well. I think, your tone and approach have the ability to turn any situation more into a positive outcome. And conversations that start off with empathy really do give the perception to the employee or staff member that you truly care as a leader. And that's our goal, is to ensuring that we're trusted partners to campus-wide. And what we'll do next is we're going to briefly touch on performance management here in the next slide. And we'll give you a couple other tips and bits on how to use that moving forward as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So, these are great examples. The video did a great job. Again, going back to the tone and the delivery is a big part of that, and building that trust with your employee, so that they feel welcome and open enough and have that safety to be able to express what's on their mind and what they're really struggling with. Goals. As we look at this slide in performance management, there's lots of great tips here. Things that are all things that we can do to better be prepared for the evaluation. Setting goals, meeting regularly, conversations that are honest and transparent, that provide feedback. These are all great things. As we talk about goals are still important, and they still matter, of course. But again, in light of what we are dealing with that are outside of our control, they may need to be adapted to current situations and circumstances. Employee goals that were set for current year, need to be considered through the lens of the pandemic impact, right? So, consider what all overall company targets were for the current time frame, compare them to year date over their achievements. There's a significant overall difference. So goals are still important. And again, having those conversations with your employees, especially this year, because of what we're up against, I think is crucial. Another big part, a supervisor, as you play that role, is, do you understand, thinking about the needs of your team and their goals? What are the team goals? What do your employees know, again, what's expected of them? Do they know that they have the tools to do the job successfully? And so this kind of goes into the next question we want to open up for discussion, and feel free to unmic and chat, is what are some of the roadblocks, if any, that you are up against or that you feel that you're up against as supervisors when it comes to how do we measure their performance during the pandemic, right? During this COVID-19 remote world, how do we do that? Maybe that's a question that's coming to your mind. And, is that a roadblock, and how do we overcome that? So if any of you have any suggestions or any personal thoughts as to what you're doing, maybe you have a great idea, please feel free to share it on mic, because I think that's a very serious question that a lot of people are asking. So Denise has a good one. So no face-to-face interaction. Yeah. And how can that be, how can that be difficult or roadblock? And I think it's hard, right? To maybe build more trust that way. If you're not seeing them every day, you're not interacting with them. Maybe they don't feel like there's an open door policy. They don't feel like they can come to you and say what's on their mind. Are there any other roadblocks that you are up against, or maybe that you have considered? I was like, how am I going to do that this year? Any thoughts or comments? And please let me know. I can't see the chat box. I'm trying to watch it as they come in, so I'll let my colleagues help me out there. So I'm guessing there's none. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Denise. Well, again, one of the things I think about too. Oh, yes.
I was going to say something. It's Joanne Leidy. That I think has been really hard is uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty, not only in the environment that we're in as higher ed and budget things, as well as your own personal uncertainty. Is my family safe? And so there's a lot of uncertainty that kind of is weighing on people. Yeah,
thanks, Joanne. I think that's a huge valid point, right? And so how do we combat that? and I think one of the ways is we can be as transparent as possible, right? We don't have all the answers. But again, I think it comes down to psychological safety. If your employee feels that way as a supervisor, you probably should know that. Are you checking in with them to say, Diana, how are you feeling? Not just, Diana, did you get that project done on time? Why not? What can I do? But then, Diana, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are your worries and concerns? What can I do to help? And again, sometimes we don't know, we don't have an answer. Diana asking Joanne can't say, well, you're going to get a CEC. I can guarantee that. You can't do that sometimes, right? But what you can do in your control is offer the support and emotional support that maybe Diana needs in that moment. And I think that's what we're trying to move towards with the empathy piece and I'm using Diana for an example, I apologize. That's the first name on my screen. But I think that's important. And I think that's what true performance management is. It's their performance of that person, not just professionally, but just the person as well. I'm sorry, Diana, for using you as an example.
Hey, Abel, this is
But
Denise.
yeah, Joanne, I think
Go ahead.
That's a great point. Thank you for your comment.
So Christina said, work has become much more invisible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that what you mean by that is you may be doing a lot of more work that people aren't seeing. So you feel less recognized, or that you're not getting credit for the work you're doing. Am I in the right vein there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's both. Like for both me and my employee, it was very clear. We have students, I do advising, so we have students in and out of the office all the time, every day. And now all of these are done via Zoom, or we're working via email. And so that workload has increased, but is also invisible to anybody who's not right in the middle of it.
Yeah. And so let me ask you, Christina, do you meet with your employees and kind of gauge what their workload is? And are they saying those types of things to you as a supervisor?
Yes. So we do have a meeting once every week. And most of our meeting is generally, yes, like I'm swamped and I keep getting emails for these projects and I'm trying to figure out how to prioritize it. And folks are asking where things are at, but they aren't seeing other things that I'm doing. So a lot of it is that, mostly just because
Perfect.
When we were in office setting, folks would come down and visit with us, and it was just easy. But now it's a lot more difficult.
I totally understand. I understand it. And we have some career centers and other advising places on campus where they get a lot of foot traffic. And I think Kyle talked about that. I think one of the jobs and one of the great responsibilities that you have as a supervisor, and all of us as supervisors, is offering that recognition and appreciation to your employees when you meet with them, right? So again, not just saying, what's your output? What are you doing? Consoling them, helping them feel safe, but also, Christina, thank you for so much work that you're doing. I know that it's been different this year. I know that you've adapted well. And I know that you're doing a lot of work that you didn't sign up for, that none of us did, but I appreciate you. And I think that goes a long way for employees. So making sure we give that appreciation and credit where it's due.
Hey, Abel, Rick.
Kyle, did you have any input on that?
No, I think that was great, Abel. I think, really giving credit to adaptability. I mean, I think that's going to be crucial. We know it's different. We know this is not, normal times. And, when you see those different patterns in the workloads or they're adjusting, I think as long as we're giving credit where credit's due, especially if workload has increased, which I think a lot of our, workload has increased, even working from home. And while it's so different, we recognize that, well, we're still getting the job done. So if they are performing and they're getting the job done and it's different than it was last year, then I think that credit for adaptability is going to be huge for you. So I think you hit it on the head, Abel.
Yeah, Abel, Rick agrees with those comments. He says, though, even though they have monthly meetings, there's probably a lot of day-to-day work that is being missed and being recognized.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate that. And some examples of things that that we do in HR, and I'm just using my team, is we have a kudos board. We do evites. We do virtual things now to when we meet as a group, we do shout outs and kudos to give that recognition where it's due. And I think a big part of recognition to your employees is doing it in real time or as soon as you can. I think it's hard to give somebody recognition, going back to our current performance evaluation at the very end of the year versus when they do something great, recognize them in the moment. And I think that's a good practice to put in play. Well, actually, we're going to show a quick slide, a video clip. It's only like 10 seconds long. And I think it fits well with where we're heading and the direction we're heading. And I'll let Kyle go ahead and play that video for us.
Look at the cute dog.
So I saw some of you crack a smile. I hope it made you smile a little bit. So why is this applicable to what we're talking about? I think sometimes our perception, there's a common theme in saying that says perception is reality. And I think that's true in some cases, but I think sometimes perception is not reality. And I guess the theme here is that the ad that says, don't judge too quickly, we won't. And I think that goes along with the empathy piece our employees are facing and us ourselves as employees, because of these circumstances we're in. Some things may be skewed or perceived a certain way, and in reality, that's not the case. Or from that perspective, from the person walking the dog's perspective, their intentions were innocent, right? But from a different perspective, it may look bad. So I think the overall, the overall message there is not judging too quickly and really making sure you understand their perspective. And we'll jump right into that, of some things to be mindful of and how that video plays into some examples that we can really give you that are real life examples with your employees in your performance eval. So I'll let Kyle use those examples.
Yeah, thanks, Abel. For me, coming from Ada County using WebEx, 2 months ago to now using Zoom, it took me a good, 3 weeks to really get the Zoom down. It took me for the longest time. I couldn't figure out how to start a meeting or how to create a meeting. So, like for me, I think for many of your employees and maybe even some of you all out there, Zoom is new for us, right? So I would hope that Tiffany, my manager on this call, will not hold that against me during my evaluation, here in a couple months. But I struggled with it for a little bit. So are we penalizing anybody for struggling with technology that was relatively new to them? Are we penalizing anybody who may have their camera off? A lot of us that are home, some of us that do have children that are in school in a virtual setting, we're making lunch for them at 12 p.m. and we are logging onto a meeting at 12:30. So my camera may be off for a few minutes just so I could get something down to eat, right? So we want to make sure we're thinking about things that are going on in people's personal lives that could affect some of their work, or, for you as manager out there, you're wondering why they're mute or why their camera's off. It's because we have no idea what's going on in their personal lives, right? So we're trying to adjust. But really, understanding that things such as daycares or school closures, that stuff's out of our control. So when we're missing time away from work because we're trying to quickly adjust or pivot on where we're going to have our kids, be placed for, 8 hours out of the day. We didn't go through this stuff last year. And for me, I'm on my hotspot today. I'm using my iPhone as my hotspot because, again, my wife's working from home. I'm working from home. We have 3 kids that are utilizing computers at any given time throughout our day. So my bandwidth is very slow here. So I have to use my hotspot to ensure that I'm not going to log off this call or log off a meeting later on. And, I don't want those things penalizing me later on because of my slow bandwidth. This is all new again. So we want you to be mindful of things about things that are maybe out of our control. We call it harmless here in HR, and it's really not holding anybody accountable for things that are out of their control. We also have things such as approved leaves, Families First Coronavirus Response Act, Family Medical Leave Act, FMLA, furloughs, Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, people that are campus-wide that have these approved leaves, maybe sometimes a block out of a time. And, are we penalizing people for missing, chunks of work throughout the year when it's been approved by HR? And the answer is no, so we want to make sure that you guys are mindful of things when you're looking into the whole package regarding performance management. Again, a lot of us are wearing many hats. I'm a teacher at home. I fourth grade math that I totally forgot about. I'm working. I am cooking lunch. I am helping out with our infant. So there's a lot of things going on. I'm wearing many hats, but I at the end of the day, I'm making sure that I'm getting my work done. And hopefully, if it's not being recognized, then we want to make sure that, we're reaching out to our team to ensure that, we understand kind of those struggles so we could take off some of those loads off their plate if they are struggling with their performance, if that makes any sense. So like I discussed earlier, a lot of us are doing multiple things at the same time. So the perception of some, that maybe, hey, he's always unavailable or she's unavailable or doesn't respond quickly enough. Again, we're not sure what's going on unless we ask. So this balance that has been new for us, the situations, the perception versus reality piece is, well, the perception is I'm actually paying attention and the reality is I'm just extremely busy. So if my camera's off, these are the reasons why. So I want to make sure you guys have understanding that there's a lot of things that are going on in everyone's lives. And these are just some of the tip of the iceberg that you can't see underneath the surface. And I'm going to let Abel go ahead and explain that picture in the bottom left-hand corner regarding the iceberg.
Yeah, I think it's a great segue. And I'm seeing some chats come in. I'm reading some of those. So I really appreciate your guys' input. A lot of us as human beings, we're very multidimensional. So before, when we could kind of leave home life at home and go to work, now those worlds have collided, right? So for me, I don't have lots of extra bedrooms to have an office in. I've got my 3-year-old running around with no shirt in the background and my 1-year-old screaming and my internet. This last session I did of this training, I was talking right about now and my internet cut out and I dropped off the call and I had to log back in. So I think it's just life, right? And those are the hold against our employees when it comes to their evaluation. And before you mark that box as a 1, 2, or 3, these are things that we kind of want to make sure you're looking through those lens and really looking at not just their output, but what they're up against. And again, going back to giving credit for the adaptability. For someone jumping from the lily pad to the rock, they've made that transition. Give them credit for just doing that and hanging in there. And so I think these are important factors. When we look at the iceberg, again, all we're seeing sometimes from our perspective is the tip of the iceberg. And in reality, there's lots of layers to humans and to people. And we have their lifestyles, we have their behaviors, we have their emotional, we have their mental health. And so there's lots of things that are now being agitated, and those things are coming up to the surface as a result of the pandemic and in part because of working from home. So that can interfere and play a part. I think the video did a great job of, well, how do I combat that? Again, and I'm quoting Denise here, set expectations, right? Go back and let's talk about what their expectations are amidst COVID-19. If they're supposed to be on a call with their camera on, do they know that? Have you set that expectation? So I think those are conversations that we may have to just have, and how you deliver that is all in your tone and approach is going to be also important, as the video stressed. Now that we touched a little bit on those layers of humans and what all these things are coming to surface as, let's talk a little bit about the mental piece, because I think there's a lot of that going around campus right now, and the mental well-being. And my office is in my bedroom. How do I separate mentally? I'm working more than I ever have because I'm in my bedroom and I'm working all the time. And mentally, maybe I'm stressed because of my kids and work and my deadlines. And so how do we take care of ourselves and our employees? And so I'll let Kyle introduce kind of our thought partner on this and show the quick clip of him.
Yeah, I think many of you have are familiar with Matt Neese, who's an expert here on campus, who's also been a great resource for us here in HR during this pandemic regarding, mental health and really stressing the empathy theme. So this is a 5-minute video, but we're going to show you guys about a minute and a half of it, and we'll send a recap email to you guys after this session that'll have the full clip. But he goes over the empathy piece from the clinical lens, and we want you guys to listen to that. So give me a second. Let me get you situated to the right area. Video unavailable. May have been removed.
Here, I got another. Oh yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was going to say, well, maybe we could just send it out if it's not here on YouTube.
Yeah, I think Casey edited it, so I think we have a new link, and I just sent that link to you. If it's too hard to pull up, we can send it out in the email recap.
Okay, if you guys give me just about 2 seconds, let me see if I can pick this real fast. You guys see my screen okay still?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. 2:45. This looks
good
like.
morning and welcome to our HR. That might be our old one. That's
Yeah.
our other training. I've adopted it. And I think Matt is just another great thought partner. This year, it seems like even more so than ever that he's given some great insights as to your well.
You guys see that okay, Abel?
When it comes to applying my knowledge of empathy, there's a really great framework that helps me keep in check. On one end of the spectrum, there's what we call cognitive empathy. This is when I understand cognitively what's going on for another person emotionally, but I don't have my own emotional connection to that experience and therefore don't care enough to do anything about this understanding. On the other end of the spectrum, there's emotional empathy. This is when I'm connecting so much emotionally with my perception of what the other person is feeling that I lose myself in a moment. I become flooded with my own emotions in an attempt to align with the other person that I'm unable to be helpful in that situation. And then in the middle, there's what we call compassionate empathy, which, as you might expect, is a healthy blend between the first two. Based on my working knowledge of this person's life, when I'm feeling compassionate empathy, I have enough information to infer what they are likely experiencing. I have enough emotional connection to this person and their circumstances to have the desire to help. And because I'm staying grounded in my own identity, I'm able to be moved by this experience and the ability to compassionately or empathically support this person. So I know it can seem like a daunting.
Again, this video will be available. Sorry about that. We'll have the full video for you available after today's session, so you guys can capture that message there. But we wanted you guys to understand that it's not just coming from HR. We have people on campus that are thought partners that are along with us to help promote the same kind of message. And he does a great job at really piecing that empathy thing together for us, especially during this COVID crisis. So thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate you guys for hanging tight with us. And what we'll do next, we'll discuss,
Hey, Kyle,
yes.
There's one question in the chat.
Oh, yes.
From Yvette. She says, I appreciate empathy from our direct employees. How can HR help encourage empathy to our employees, not just our direct reports?
To our employees? So maybe amongst each other? Tiffany? Correct. Maybe, yeah. So I think, me being new, I think our team has done a great job at doing team building exercises. I find it engaging while I am away from the office, and I haven't seen many of my team members face to face yet. having those teammates reach out to me, almost on an everyday basis, maybe it's every other day, but having those check-ins for me, have been really meaningful. But then Tiffany does a great job at making sure that as a collective group effort, we're having these different exercises for us to start to build that trust amongst each other. Since we're kind of newly formed anyway, and with Abel coming in, being new, myself coming in, and Kip, emerging into one team that's newly created, we want to make sure that we know how each other work, right? So I think team building activities do a great job at that. But I think encouraging your team members to have meaningful check-ins, and not coming from, it being fake. When I came from Ada County, I made it, a point to ask everybody, that I at least ran across that day, how they're doing, but made it meaningful. So that allowed me to build a lot of trust with my team members. And, it really gave me the credibility to have an empathy theme come from me to hopefully, have the receptor do the same later on. And that's kind of how I've been operating. I don't know, Abel, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so Yvette, I think these are good questions. And I think a lot of it comes back down to, what Kyle is saying is there are activities you can do to promote that. And we'd love to share those strategies off the call and feel free to discuss it with us and our team. But a lot of it is going to come down to trust. I sent a good quote to my team this morning about a team, and I think it was a Simon Sinek quote that said, "A team is not a group of people that come together and do a task. It's a group of people that trust each other." I think there's a difference there. So, having that trust and that transparency is important. I don't always agree with everything that my colleagues say, but we have trust and empathy and respect for each other that we can have transparent, good feedback, and we can build that trust on each other. And that goes along with the empathy piece. And so it's kind of a natural, but it takes time, just like anything, just like a relationship with your significant other or family member, like any relationship, work relationships are the same, and it takes time and it takes effort. So I think it's a valid path to follow, and it's worth the trip, but it does take time and effort. And so there's some great books we could recommend and some other things that we read here in HR. So happy to discuss more off the call.
Yeah.
Kyle, did you want to wrap up that slide, and then we'll wrap up
sure will.
With some questions?
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll speed it up. Really, according to the CDC, COVID-19, has been really stressful to a lot of us, fear and anxiety about a new disease, and what could happen could be overwhelming and cause strong emotions in adults and in children. Public health actions such as social gatherings can make people feel isolated and lonely, and can increase, stress and anxiety, which ultimately can affect work when we have people that are going through these type of struggles. So stress during an infectious disease outbreak can also cause, patterns in, different sleeping issues or, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, changes in eating patterns, fear and worrying about your own health and the health of your loved ones, worsening mental health conditions. So many people and staff members here on campus, have those same worries, right? So during this time, is it appropriate for us to show a little bit of grace during this unknown? And I think, again, we've stressed this all day, but the answer is probably yes. And as a manager, it's our job to provide those tools such as like EAP and other programs to ensure that our employees have the right type of tools in place to not only succeed in their personal lives, but to also succeed on the job. So we wanted to make sure that we brought this piece out because this is another piece that Matt Neese is really adamant about, and that's tackling the mental health crisis, which has, I think, gone up a little bit with the COVID-19. So we wanted to add this piece to the puzzle as well. So as we wind down, we're going to give you guys an update, like we said earlier, regarding kind of what's new, what's to come in HR regarding evaluations, hopefully next year.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So what's on the horizon for HR and performance evaluations? And I think many of you are probably wondering this or asking from across campus, so we wanted to address that. We do truly believe in the more frequent, regular check-ins, and that's something that I think we want to move towards eventually, where the feedback, the recognition, the worries, the discussions are not happening at the very end of the year, where it's even the stress is even more heightened because of time, the holidays, and am I going to get a raise, right? But it's also those smaller bite-sized pieces, the discussions happening monthly throughout the year. And so we really want to strive towards more meaningful conversations, and within those conversations, developing people, building trust and transparency, having an open door policy where your employees truly can go to you and ask you something they may not feel comfortable doing. Like, I don't feel comfortable taking on this project. I don't feel like I have the tools to do it. I'm not successful, rather than them trying to do it because they feel like they can't trust, a colleague or supervisor to really be honest about what they're feeling. So I think these conversations being instead of one big thing, Boulder, they're bite-sized pieces and they're continuous throughout the year. Some of the other things that we'll provide in that is more innovative resources available to both the manager and the employee as to maybe what does a check-in look like? Maybe some videos and resources as to it should look like, what it shouldn't. What are some tips for managers and employees, and just some templates and other resources for goal setting, all of which, how do we all do this in a virtual setting as well as we move towards the unknown? How long will we be in this remote session, and how do I manage my people more remotely effectively? So I think these are things that are on our minds, and they're things that we're thinking about and that are cooking in the hopper. And we'd love any feedback from any of you as well. So feel free to reach out to the growth team or myself or Kyle, and we'd love to snag any ideas and use you guys as a thought partner as well in this process. That being said, we've got about 7 minutes left, and we wanted to just kind of kick it over to this group, this audience, to ask any questions. I feel like we've talked a lot, so we'll give you a chance to chime in and either the chat box or on mic and tell us if you have any questions that we can maybe answer for you.
Hey, Abel, this is
And
Denise.
you'll have oh, go ahead.
So I put the link to Matt Neese's video in the chat box so you guys can watch after this session.
Thank you, Denise.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah. So we'll send that out in the recap as well, but it is there for you if you'd like to watch his whole 5-minute clip. It's really good. And we're really happy to be partnering with Matt on this too. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts, anything you'd like to add to as you enter the evaluation season? I hope this was valuable. We do want to stress how much we do care for you. We appreciate the work that you are doing in your departments and colleges. Again, the seen and unseen, and we know that you are putting in lots of work, and it's not easy. It's been difficult. So please know that we in HR appreciate you and the line of duty that you're in with managing the people that are under you and being true leaders where you stand. So we really appreciate your efforts.